Hi, everyone, and welcome to Week 9, Teaching Vocabulary. This week, we are focusing on one area of language instruction, vocabulary, because of its importance in supporting reading comprehension, but also its importance for supporting students' content learning across a range of different areas. As we've talked about in previous weeks, our focus on vocabulary does not mean that we are not valuing the other aspects of academic language that we've been learning about. Certainly, I want you to still take a functional approach to language and to think critically about the ways in which we use language to accomplish a range of different purposes across the school day and in different subjects. But for this week, because vocabulary is an important area for us to think about as educators of multilingual learners, we're going to spend a little bit of time unpacking some strategies that you can use to support students' vocabulary learning and some different ways to assess student learning. So as you'll see in this week, we'll begin by talking about how you decide which words to teach. And, with the array of words we could possibly choose in any given lesson, it's important to think about not throwing 30 new words at our students, but really being strategic about the words that are most important for students to engage in a particular lesson, and also the words that are most important for students to be successful in other areas of their academic career and beyond. So we're going to begin by watching a very short video from Dr. Cindy Lundgren when she talks about the concept of bricks and mortar words as a way for us to think about vocabulary instruction for multilingual learners. So you'll watch that first to think about the brick words and the mortar that keeps all of those words together. From there, we're going to move into our first reading, which is from Calderon's book. We're reading chapter 5 first, which is about selecting words to teach. And you'll see that she draws upon the 3 tiers of vocabulary, which some of you may be familiar with, as a way to think about different types of words and the way in which that to help us think about which ones might need to be explicitly taught. And then we'll get into what that looks like with our next reading. So you see a visual there that helps you think about tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 words. And I want you to especially spend some time thinking about tier 2 words, those high frequency words that tend to be found across subjects, but tend to be more school-based words. So they might be words students don't have access to or don't use much outside of school, and think about ways we can support students learning those words in addition to the tier 3 words that are likely words you're already planning to prioritize. From there, we have our next chapter we'll be reading together, which is chapter 4 from Shorten Echevarria's book, Developing Academic Language with the SIOP Model. So there you're going to be looking also at word selection, although they have slightly different criteria for thinking about that. And they give you some examples of strategies for teaching vocabulary and how to organize your instructional time with a lens towards vocabulary. From there, we move into some more kind of strategy-focused readings. So you have 2 chapters there, another chapter from Calderon's book that focuses on different strategies. And I really like that she emphasizes that the best vocabulary instruction is not taught with isolated word lists, but it really is about learning words in context through multiple exposure, meaningful practice, and connections to students' prior knowledge, which includes their linguistic knowledge, right? So if we think about translanguaging perspectives of our students, or if we think about cross-linguistic transfer and Jim Cummins' interdependence hypothesis, we know that students bring all of their linguistic resources with them when they come into our classrooms. So thinking about that when we think about teaching vocabulary and how we can help students make connections across languages. Then there's one final chapter you'll be reading from Springer's book, which then takes us into assessment. So we think about how can we then assess what students have learned with a focus on vocabulary. So as you're engaging in both of those readings, I want you to think about an upcoming lesson that you might be teaching or might be planning if you're a pre-service teacher, and how some of these different strategies might apply in that context. I've included a couple optional readings if you really like Springer's chapter that I think are also useful, give you some more ideas for how to effectively teach vocabulary. And then I've also included this week a learning game for you to apply and try out vocabulary strategy, vocabulary teaching strategy. So this is an activity focused on identifying words that connect to Greek and Latin roots. And I especially want you to have that multilingual lens on root words as you think about cognates between English and Spanish. So I've created a Padlet. And what I'm going to have you do is I've assigned a different route to a few of you on a Padlet on your own screen. And I want you to go in and add as many words as you can think of that connect to your assigned root word and post the words and their definitions. And then add in any Spanish cognates that you can identify based on that. And winners get bragging rights for the rest of the semester. So have at it. And then finally, we will end the week by discussing and applying our learning through the discussion forum. I'm going to have you download a Freyer model reflection on your own vocabulary instruction or how you approach vocabulary instruction. So download that, use that first to reflect, and then you'll be posting it and posting your reflection on the discussion board. Do remember that you should be continuing to work on your school or district-based problem paper or your advocacy paper. This is the week where you can submit your draft to me and get feedback. So if you can get me your draft by this Sunday, I can read it over and get you some feedback soon. So you can take that into account for the final paper. And then also just a reminder that last week we pushed the due date for your discussion board responses to Friday. So while that's still from last week's material, just remember to watch your group member strategy videos and give them feedback on those by this Friday, since you have that extended time frame. So that is it for this week. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. And if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out. Happy to respond via email or to set up a time to meet and talk with you. And that's it for this week. Bye.